guys, and welcome back to another episode of Fit and Focus for Remote Work and Digital Nomads podcast. This podcast is brought to you by Brain Mastery Academy, where I teach you all the tools, all the brain tools you can use to help your brain do its absolute best so you can achieve anything you want. And I'm your brain coach, Shurina, with a background in nutrition, integrative health, performance coaching, and I'm here to deliver this amazing podcast. I'm biased to say that it's amazing, but I absolutely love doing that. And what I can say from data, from the statistics, that people keep listening to it for years, that probably you are getting some useful value. And hopefully, guys, you're getting the kind of value that is easy to put into practice. Well, at least it's not that complex. That's what I'm trying to do here. Not just give you the knowledge, but also, more importantly, to translate it into practical tools and habits that you can start doing today and start getting benefits. If not today, then very, very soon, right? Some habits, some protocols will require consistent implementation to get the results. Some you start doing once, start doing that today, and you already start feeling better. But for sure, if you want any result in your life to last, you gotta take it daily. What I mean by that is, it's like shower. You want to be clean every day, you got to take it daily. You want to be motivated every day, you got to do certain things daily. Very simple. So on Monday, we talked about what starts motivation, right? The spark of motivation for every high performer. It's like the fire starter, your intention, connection to your dreams, to your goals, and then starting creating this brain body chemistry that helps your dopamine, the molecule of motivation, the molecule of more of pursuit, of drive, of goal achieving. You help this molecule to function well by creating certain conditions in your body, in your brain, through sleep, exercise, light exposure, some other practices, right? You do it daily and you have this spark that has the potential to ignite your motivation and make it into a fire that just keeps giving, keeps lighting you up. But guys, just like any fire, to last, you gotta add the wood, and wood for your motivation, for your dopamine, is actually on your plate. Is something that you put or you don't put on your plate. Again, in order for the fire to keep going, you need to keep putting in the wood. Yeah, you need to keep the spark going with connection to your dreams, to your bigger visions, even when doing the mundane things. Then you gotta create the brain body chemistry that supports that fire. It's kind of like oxygen for the fire. If you don't have it, the fire is not happening. Did you know that in order for fire to be happening, you actually need to be in the oxygenated environment? That's why if you are in a vacuum, you can't really start the fire. It's just, basic chemistry. You don't need to know chemistry, but you need to understand one thing. So the spark, connect to your dream, start the oxygen going to feed that fire to start it, right? But then to keep it going, you need to put in the wood. And so what is the wood for motivation? Again, motivation is a chemical state. It's not something metaphorical, something you just kind of feel and it comes from some ether, from nowhere, from something you can't feel or touch. It's actually something that your body creates. It uses the molecule of dopamine as one of the major players to create that state of motivation in your body, in your brain, right? We're physical beings. And yeah, there are some things that we can't measure on a physical level, but there are a lot of other things that have to be present physically in order for seemingly non-physical stuff to happen, like motivation, right? You can't really touch it, but actually in your brain, it is translated into higher molecular levels of dopamine, that neurotransmitter, that messenger that neurons use to communicate. So dopamine, like, what's the wood? What is it made of? What do you need to maintain that fire of motivation? Like, right? You got the spark, you got the oxygen. Now what's the wood? The wood is things like tyrosine. That is a kind of protein, amino acid actually, that is found in more abundant amounts in some foods, but not the others. And of course, I'm going to tell you the foods in a minute in the amounts that you want to get every day. But that's the wood. Again, you can have the spark, you can have the oxygen, but if there is no wood, your fire is going to die. If it has nothing to feed on, your fire is going to die. And from my personal experience, I was in a vegan diet and I didn't realize that at that time, but I was not giving my motivation the wood it needed. And so I would often find myself in a position where I would have these very high aspirations and desires and goals, but I found it very hard to actually get stuff done. I just didn't have some, additional push to get me there and keep going, keep taking actions to actually get the results in real life, those dreams that I wanted to manifest. So what's the wood for that fire of motivation? The wood, one biggest piece is tyrosine. Although, biggest piece is a very relative concept in nutrition, because you get this bigger piece, but then if you don't get the smaller pieces as well, it kind of like has to be different kinds of foods, right? Then the whole thing not gonna work. It's like with computer, you have all the parts, but if one crucial piece is missing, it's just not gonna work. One transistor or something doesn't work, the whole thing doesn't work. It's just kind of similar for motivation. So the first major wood block is tyrosine, and that is the amino acid. That is the kind of protein. And predominantly it is found, and now you'll understand why the vegan diet I told you about. It's predominantly found in animal-based foods. So the richest sources of tyrosine are animal-based foods, and not just any, but specific ones. We're talking about lean cuts, and I'm saying lean not because, fat is bad, but because actually the more saturated fat, for example, you have, your dopamine gets down regulated, like your receptors just don't work that well for some reason, right? So that's why I'm saying lean. And plus the tyrosine, it's a protein. It's always located in the lean tissue. Fat is not protein, obviously. So lean cuts of beef, pork, chicken, and then we have salmon here. But salmon is a different kind of animal, obviously, it's fish. The fat that is in salmon, it's actually, a lot of it is omega-3s, right? EPA, DHAs, and that actually makes our dopamine, a lot of other neurotransmitters work better. So we have 4 major animal foods: lean beef, pork, chicken, and we have salmon. And in the plant-based kingdom, we have firm tofu, and firm matters as well, because when it's not firm, it's not as concentrated, and tyrosine is not as concentrated, right? So to give you an idea, per serving of those foods, and that's about 6 ounces, 180 grams of food of lean beef, pork, chicken, and salmon, you would get more than 200% of your requirements. Tofu per big cup, it's about 200. So you get those, 200% of the required tyrosine that we need for different activities. And one of those activities is dopamine, right? Just one serving. Now, when we start getting into other foods, even foods like milk or cheese that are also animal, and especially if you start getting into other plant-based foods, you will need to eat a serving. Well, actually with the foods, the ones that I told you, just thought about it. You will need to just have a serving to give at least minimum requirement, right? I would never shoot for minimum requirement just because it's for survival, not for optimal function. So for me, 200% is, well, at least we are getting somewhere maybe near optimal performance, right? But then the other foods, like let's say pumpkin seeds, also quite rich comparatively in tyrosine, that wood to build the fire of motivation. So a serving would give you about 80%, right? Still not like 200%, not full, but quite a good amount. But if you want to really upgrade your levels of motivation, if you want to keep it burning, bright and hot, it's fueling your biggest aspirations and dreams and a lot of hard work that is required to achieve them. So if you want that, I would shoot for the animal foods, specifically lean beef, pork, chicken, and salmon. And on a plant-based side, the best is firm tofu. So those foods are for people like myself who love their dopamine and who want to build something that changes the world in some way, something significant and bright. For me, it's transforming the way we talk about performance and our environment and our food, giving people everywhere globally access to those tools to know how to feel our best and do our best every single day. When I was a kid, again, I didn't have those tools and I would cry for one reason or the other. We all had different issues growing up. Well, most of us, right? And I wouldn't know how to deal with my emotions, and it stopped me in so many ways. You would think, it's something wrong with me or with the world, right? But it was just your state, and you can breathe differently and you can adjust that and be happy and get on with your life, right? We'll have these tools, but the knowledge about them is not widely distributed, available, not evenly distributed. And so I'm passionate about changing that. And those tools obviously includes not just breathing, but also our environment and also all kinds of different behavior protocols and nutrition protocols, right? Like for motivation, you need to eat those foods. Vegan dance, plant-based dance get very popular, but they just say, just eat plants and everything's going to be okay. No, everything is not going to be okay. If you are deficient in key nutrients for your brain and your body, you're going to be miserable. And nobody is going to be happier because of that. You're not going to do anything good in the world. You're probably going to upset a lot of other people. And the whole life experience is just going to be miserable, right? So plant-based, it's not all be all. Like there is science to it. You got to understand the details, right? So just very passionate about the, this issue of saying just one thing is good without getting into details. But let's get back to it. So to keep your fire of motivation going, you need the wood. And one of the biggest pieces is that tyrosine that is predominantly found in lean beef, pork, chicken, and salmon. We have firm tofu on the vegan side. And there are other foods that have some more, some less amounts of tyrosine, but not as much. And here we are talking about the most effective tools. So by the way, if you want to know like all the foods that have quite good amount of tyrosine, please let me know and I'll help you to figure out your tyrosine rich menu so you also can feel more motivated to pursue your dreams and do the hard stuff as well with the same level of motivation and drive. One more thing, fava or broad beans are great sources of L-dopa that's made into dopamine and motivation even faster. So L-dopa, that is the easiest, so to speak, way to make dopamine, that molecule of motivation. So fava beans, broad beans have them in really great amounts. And then the other piece is don't forget to supplement, guys. If you don't have sufficient amount of B vitamins, if you don't consistently get sufficient amounts of copper, zinc, and iron, and those are actually in most people's diets are deficient, according to statistics, 60-70% of people are deficient or even more are inadequate, because deficiency is more severe than inadequacy, right? So I always say you're probably not going to be eating like nutritionists, designing your menu. So please do make sure to get your supplements, your good multivitamin and good multi-mineral. Those are two different things. They are never usually combined in one supplement, because all of those things are combined together would be quite a big pill to swallow. simple logistics. That's why they separate those supplements usually. So you get your tyrosine, eat it every day. You need your dopamine motivation every day to keep the fire of motivation ignited by connection to your dreams and good sleep, light exposure, and exercise. So to keep the fire going, eat your tyrosine-rich foods and then supplement, especially B complex and minerals like iron, zinc, and copper, but then also, of course, magnesium and calcium are hugely important for your brain performance. And that's about it for today, guys. Just remember that everything that you think is not physical, like motivation, it's actually quite physical in your body, in your brain. Every one of your moods and thoughts, they are biochemistry in your body, in your brain. Biochemistry that you can affect with your behaviors, your environment, and your nutrition. And even things like light, different kinds of light and colors and music and smells, aromas, right? All of that makes a difference. The words you use, it changes your biochemistry, changes what's happening in your body and brain on a molecular level. Just understand that this metaphysical stuff and physical stuff, it is all connected and translated one into another. So what you feel is actually what can be traced in your body and in your brain. And motivation is one of those things. Spark that fire, ignite that fire by connecting to your dreams, to your goals, to your visions. Then make sure that you have all the oxygen for that fire to keep it going. Create the base of that biochemistry by exercise, by sleeping well, by light exposure. And then don't forget to put in the wood every single day. Again, just like shower. If you want to see the results daily, you got to take it daily. Eat that tyrosine. And if you do decide on plant-based diet, I'm not against that. To just do it by science, not like a knee-jerk reaction. I'll just, gonna eat plants and whatever. Can backfire and will backfire. That's it for today, guys. Again, if you have any questions about more tyrosine-rich foods, if you have questions about dopamine, about motivation, or about our Brain Mastery Academy, where we're learning all the tools you can use to help your brain do its absolute best, then please reach out. Also, connect with me on Instagram. And if you find these episodes valuable, please, guys, please share. Let's educate each other. Let's learn from each other. Let's make the world better for each other. And share this episode, review our podcast on iTunes if you are an Apple user, because I know on Android it's a pain in the ass. So do that, would do me a huge favor. It would help me to help more people. And till next time, as usual, guys, stay motivated and eat some tyrosine-rich foods. Let's repeat again. Lean beef, pork, chicken, salmon, and firm tofu.